leadership, and leadership, right? We live or we die by our leadership. Leadership is a choice, not a position. Leadership needs to be intentional, not passive. And leadership isn't just about getting the best out of others. It's about getting the best out of ourselves. And, I think with leadership, there's often just as many things that we should stop doing as we should start doing.
Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Pay It Forward podcast. I am one of your hosts, Austin Seward, along with my co-host, Keegan Walls. And today we have the pleasure of sitting down with my good friend, Ben Phillips. Ben is the president and CEO of Phillips Outdoor Services here in La Crosse. He is also an author and a growth coach. So imagine facing obstacles that could have stopped you in your tracks. But instead, those same obstacles actually were fuel for your success. As the CEO of Phillips Outdoor Services, he's built more than a business. He's built a legacy of growth, resilience, and inspiration. Thank you so much for being here today, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Just want to say I respect and appreciate what you guys are doing. Paying it forward definitely resonates with my mission. And so it's just really great to be a part of this.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more about Phillips Outdoor Services and what you guys do.
Yeah, let me start with sharing more of what I'm currently doing.
Sure.
Just kind of a little bit of a rundown on the hats that I'm wearing currently. So like most of us, I wear many hats, right? I'm a Christian. I am a father to two beautiful, amazing daughters. I'm a son, a brother, an uncle. I'm a mentor and a growth coach to many. I'm currently working on a patent, and I participate in multiple athletic events each year too, which really helps to keep me kind of motivated and on track with my health and well-being goals as well. And then I'm the author of the soon-to-be #1 self-development book, How to Be More, Do More, Have More, Your Proven Roadmap for Becoming Happy, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. And of course, as you mentioned, I'm the president and CEO of Phillips Outdoor Services. And you're probably wondering, what are outdoor services, right? So, we specialize in the installation of fencing, decking, railing, landscaping, but landscaping is kind of a broad term. So we do the softscapes and the hardscapes. So more of the hardscape, design, build world, we're doing paver patios, walkways, retaining walls, seat walls, outdoor kitchens and bars. And we're doing fire features, water features, synthetic grass. We do low voltage lighting. We do pergolas, we do pet doors. We brought on an outdoor furniture line as well. So we're doing quite a bit these days.
Yeah.
And so, as far as like trying to balance and manage those things in my life, like many years ago, I created this system for my life, right? So I divide my life up into 6 critical areas. I call them foundation goals. In my book and in my coaching program, the 6 foundations are professional, personal, financial, and then relationships, well-being, which includes, physical, mental, spiritual health, and lifestyle. And I developed tools for setting and achieving goals, tools for time management, tools for productivity, kind of what my book is based around. But by doing all of that, like years ago, that's kind of what set me on the trajectory for being able to kind of manage all these multiple roles in my life right now.
That's great. Doing so much, it almost forces you to have some sort of system.
For sure.
Otherwise, you get overwhelmed. So you guys are doing awesome things in our community and obviously beyond with what you're doing and coaching and personal development and stuff like that. So what what are those core passions that drive you to want to do these things?
Right. That's such a great question, right? Because, people will often ask you, what do you do? But they don't often ask you why you do it. I think I've learned that it's really important to share the why behind the what. So for me, I'm just passionate about, helping and serving others, right? Serving our community, serving my customers, serving my team, and then ultimately just helping others become their best selves. And I'm not doing all these things because it has a high chance of making a lot of money. I'm doing them because it has a high chance of changing a lot of lives. I think it's easy to make a buck. It's a lot harder to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us how you got into this, how you got to where you are. Sure. When you think of a lot of landscaping companies, you think of people like myself who started it with their dad's lawnmower in high school and mowing people's lawns, and eventually started spreading mulch, and then eventually started planting bushes and doing design and stuff like that to eventually do what you're doing. But from my understanding, I know that was not your track at all. So how did you get to this point? Bring us back to your early days. What's your story?
Sure. Yeah, definitely landscaping was never on the radar for sure. Like, I have a hard time even remembering how I got here half the time, One thing I know for sure is life's definitely a journey, not a destination. And like wherever I am today is just really only a stepping stone to where I'm headed. So if we want to take a trip down memory lane,
let's do it.
We'll go back. Well, I was born in La Crosse. So we lived in a mobile home park, actually, until I was 3. And then my parents ended up moving us out to Houston, Minnesota, like just outside of Houston in the country. We had a few dozen acres out there. They purchased a 100-year-old like fixer-upper farmhouse. And so that's where I grew up and I went to school. Living in the country was pretty great overall, but I think the downfall was there really weren't any other people or kids like close. So my sister and I ended up becoming best friends, probably out of necessity, but we're still really great friends today. So that all worked out really well. But I actually kicked off my working career at about the age of 12. I began going to work with my dad during my summer breaks. He and my uncle had started a fencing company, so I got a crash course in fence installation really early in my life. I was definitely not a school superstar by any means, more of a C student with a propensity for getting into trouble, I would say. Probably between the ages of 16 and sadly 30, like I thought partying was a sport. And I was really good at it. Captain of my team good, So, yeah. But, through high school and college, I worked in the family business, I guess thinking that my path was to eventually, take it over. But that all changed really, I guess, after college. I felt like I needed to get away, that I needed to spread my wings, I guess. Call it a quarter-life crisis or what have you. But I ended up moving to South Florida shortly after college. I think I was 22 at that time. So I guess there were snow wings I needed to spread, but yeah, I ended up moving to South Florida with a friend shortly after I had turned 22, and I think I had $3,000 to my name, right, and no plan. So in order to decide where we wanted to live, we ended up traveling the entire Florida coast, and we started on the East Coast up in St. Augustine, and we worked our way down to the Keys, to Key West.
And all the way down.
Oh, yeah. All the way. Farthest point. The Keys are awesome.
They are. I love the Keys.
I do, too. And then we worked our way back up the West Coast to Tampa Bay. We stopped really anywhere that we found interesting, and then we packed up whenever we got bored. To save money, there were many nights of sleeping in the car and the occasional hostel. Have you guys ever stayed in a hostel before?
I have not.
I believe I
Slept?
have.
Slept. Yeah, I don't do well sleeping in a room full of strangers, it turns out. There were a lot of weird sounds and smells.
Not the most relaxed.
No, but I definitely preferred the stiff neck from sleeping in the car,
Yeah.
But I think the trip took us like 3 weeks. And we ended up calling West Palm Beach our new home. But that's really when reality set in, because it was time to find an apartment and get a job, fast. I was down to probably less than $1,200, which probably isn't bad in hindsight, considering it was a 3-week trip. But, growing up in a small town and our family not having much money, Palm Beach was a big eye-opener for me.
Big time.
Definitely, compared to what I was used to doing or seeing. And so I can remember asking myself questions like who are these people,
Yeah.
Or like how can I have a lifestyle like this?
Yeah.
Or, even a deeper question, I asked myself, what is the secret to success and happiness anyway? That was just woof.
Not to interrupt you on that,
Yeah.
but I was just down in that area this past winter, spring, and we were doing some fishing in West Palm Beach on Lake Ida.
Mm-hmm.
So we were fishing for peacock bass, and it's I don't like big cities. I don't like spending time there. I don't like a lot of people. But there is something inspiring about, we were driving on that lake. Every house is huge. And it's not like you go on lakes around here in Mississippi, you'll have one nice house and then you'll have 10 nice houses, but more average houses.
Right.
Everyone out there, it's 5 million plus, easy, huge house. I'm who are all these people?
Right.
If all of these people can have that, and then you multiply that by all the other bodies of water and the shoreline, it's there's so much opportunity out there. So I get inspired by seeing what's possible.
It's just such a change, from what I grew up with in my environment, right? So there was a lot of value that came out of it. Like I was, saying, what is the secret to success and happiness? It took me many years to discover the secret to success and happiness, but I feel like I finally discovered it, and to me, that's self-development. For me, it's not now, in hindsight, it's not so much what you get in life that matters, it's who you become. So that's been, in hindsight, after experiencing that and many years later. But anyway, back in West Palm Beach, we had found our apartment, but it was time to find jobs.
Yeah.
So I did the most logical thing, going from fence installation to trying my hand at serving tables, right? Yeah. And I was terrible at it. I remember doing things like, telling the guests or the customer the wrong price for the daily specials, forgetting to bring the salads out before the meal, never remembering who ordered what. Right?
Put them down there.
Oh, yeah.
Russian roulette.
For sure. I always admire, people now after having done geez, they're awesome. I was terrible.
That's for the people that don't write anything down, and you got a table of 8 people. And they don't write anything down. Are you nuts?
I still don't know how they do that. A microphone or what.
Yeah.
I think the kicker for me was I even brought out the check to one family before they'd even received their meal. That's I think that's when I got fired.
No, you're saying it's a down payment for the team.
Right. For sure. But, luckily from there, I was hired into the valet service, cars, at the same restaurant club that I was serving at. And that ended up being a really great fit for me because, I loved cars and interacting with people, and it was outside, and it was pretty flexible hours, and the tips were really good. So I'd like to say that I worked hard, played hard. Mm-hmm. But I think, in reality, I worked hard enough to pay my bills and support my playing. Like the partying was epic, but dangerous in hindsight. Like it was out of control at times. So, year 6, I would say, in West Palm Beach, the owner of the valet company approached me and offered me a general manager position for a new valet service that he was going to be valeting for at a new hotel. So I gave that a little bit of thought. It was kind of a big step. I was just valeting cars at that time and grew up in the family business, and that's what I knew for business at that time. But I gave it some thought, and I just decided that seems like a good step, a good challenge for me. And so I accepted, and the hotel was the Hard Rock Hotel in downtown Chicago, right? So I'm going to be moving. But from that point for training, like I immersed myself in the world of hospitality, right? Our company, our valet company, already had been serving multiple hotels in our area, like the beautiful Four Seasons Hotel in Palm Beach and the Delano Hotel and the Shore Club Hotel down in Miami Beach. So
the valet service was a separate business itself that was contracted by the hotels?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that restaurant club that I worked at was just one of the accounts, but most of the accounts were like the hotel scenes. So from there, I spent a couple of months, but again, I immersed myself into the world of valet and hospitality, having that experience of working in those amazing hotels. And they were all 4 to 5 star hotels. And so that's really where I, began to develop my 5-star mentality. My 5-star mindset was, getting involved in those hotels. So from there, after the training, I hopped on a plane and I was off to Chicago for my new adventure. And Chicago was definitely a big change of pace, right? From West Palm Beach. The Hard Rock Hotel was right on Michigan Avenue, I believe, and Wabash or Wacker Street, but right in the heart of downtown. So that was exciting to be able to be right in the middle of downtown, and I ended up getting an apartment practically right across the street from the hotel. It was on the 23rd floor of a high-rise. Beautiful view of Lake Michigan and Millennium Park. So that was beautiful, and the commute was short to work, which ended up being a really good thing because I worked a lot. I remember after arriving in Chicago, I worked 7 days a week for the first 6 weeks, just in order to get the valet service up and running before the hotel opened. There was a deadline. There's we have to be functional by that time. I ended up hiring over 30 people. It was a 24/7, 365-day-a-year operation. So no downtime. Yikes, that's tough.
Partying?
Well, intermittent.
Okay.
Intermittent. But there wasn't a lot of time, which was a good thing because I eventually got to enjoy the city a little bit more, but, I was all in. Yeah. This was my baby. I felt a lot of responsibility, as I should. I'm taking on a new venture, learning the kind of a new world to me. But, I think that, sometimes our most memorable moments in life come from on the job. I remember getting a call from my overnight manager sometime after midnight. Couldn't locate a guest vehicle, right? So I rolled out of bed, made my way down to the hotel, aka across the street, only to discover that the van their vehicle had been stolen. Right?
Dang.
Yeah, and so but we still had the keys, so I was like, what's going on with that? But obviously, there's ways around that. So after a couple of discussions with our guest and the purchase of a new van, everything worked out just great. But there was another time, too. I was at the hotel, busy check-in day. I think it was a Saturday. There was an event going on. I was there like at 7 a.m. It wasn't uncommon for me to be there on the busy weekends, right? Just because everything had to go well, and there's such volume coming in at once, and there's nowhere to park. It's downtown, so you got to get them to the garages off the streets as fast as possible. So anyway, we're doing our thing. Everything's great, but I'm still there at 9 p.m., and got a call from my overnight manager again, letting me know that he had fallen ill and wasn't going to make it in to cover his shift that night. So, of course, I tried reaching out to a couple of my employees, but nobody was too eager to take my call on such short notice to come in and cover the graveyard shift, right? Can't really blame them. I mean, they could have totally not been available anyway, but so armed with a six-pack of Red Bull and and a smile, right?
Yeah.
I had to power through and ended up working well over a 24-hour shift that day. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but
Yeah.
no biggie. But yeah, Chicago was good, and I'd say after 2.5 years in Chicago, building and managing the valet service for the hotel and maintaining one of the highest star ratings out of the whole hotel, I just started thinking, about my next, chapter. And so I ended up deciding to reunite with my family, and just come back to Wisconsin at that time.
What was there a turning point for you, like kind of that lifestyle you described of the drinking and the partying from 16 to 30? Like, what was that turning point for you? Did that happen when you came back to the La Crosse area, or did that happen in Chicago, or what was the deciding factor that ultimately why you changed?
Sure.
Because I know you're not that guy now.
No, I'm not, thankfully. But I think that turning points, so like moving to Florida, moving to Chicago, and then moving back to Wisconsin, I would call them all really important chapters of my life. But I'd say there were probably 3 critical turning points for me that occurred after I, returned to Wisconsin. Because after getting back from Chicago, I was still really unclear about my life and my purpose and my direction. So I ended up asking God for wisdom. And do you think I received wisdom in that instant?
Probably not.
Nope. I mean, it's God, not a genie, right?
Yeah.
But what I did receive was an insatiable hunger for knowledge and learning and personal growth, and ultimately wisdom. So I began delving into, books and audio programs and DVDs and really anything else that I could get my hands on at that time. And that's still true today for the most part. And then the second turning point occurred a couple of years after that. I ended up asking myself 4 critically important questions that forever changed my life, right? They were who, what, how, and why. Like, who did I want to be? What do I want to do and have? And how am I going to achieve it? And then why? Like, what were my reasons for wanting these things in the first place? What was my passion, my drive? What was going to be my fuel? What was going to get me up early or keep me up late in the pursuit of my goals and my dreams? And my book is actually broken down into those 4 parts as well. And then I would say that the third thing that really changed the trajectory of my life was when I began living by design rather than default, right? It was when I got really intentional about, my life. And that was definitely, a turning point, because then I could put all my focus on what I wanted, because then I had clarity at that point.
So kind of a sick and tired of being sick and tired mentality of like, I need I want purpose, I want wisdom, I want more
Right.
in my life? Is that where kind of the driving force was behind those changes?
Yeah, I just realized that for things to change, I had to change, right?
Mhm.
That nothing happens until there's change and then action. You got to take action. So that's why I just started to commit to wanting something more and something better for myself. Maybe I was starting to grow up at that time.
Sure.
Things just started kind of becoming more clear at that time.
Mm-hmm. And now, did you have something?
Well, we have some exciting news. We're extremely excited to share this special shout out to the very first sponsor of the Pay It Forward podcast, Dahl Automotive. Dahl is a fifth-generation family-owned business, and for over 100 years, they've been committed to making a positive impact on the community, not only by providing excellent service, but by meeting the greatest needs in our area. So through their exceptional service and their humility-based servant leadership, Dahl continues to make a positive impact and be a staple of the La Crosse area. So if you are looking for a new or a pre-owned vehicle, or you have any questions about vehicles at all, we highly recommend you stop out to your nearest Dahl dealership today. And if you're interested about how you can potentially become a sponsor of the show, please visit our website, payitforwardpodcast.com, to learn more. Now, back to your regular program.
Now you gained that clarity and that perspective and that wisdom. And you could have just said, okay, I have all this knowledge and I'm going to go do Phillips, or I'm going to go do this business or invent this. But you're doing so much more than that. You're writing a book, you're mentoring others, you're coaching others. What is the drive to now share that with others? Where does that come from?
Well, early in life, I definitely felt like I enjoyed helping others, right? I did receive satisfaction from helping people, right? The problem was that early in life, I didn't have much experience or wisdom to share. So as I grew myself and grew the company, I guess I would say that just kind of opened opportunities. It became a little bit more clear that I could help people. And as I developed, myself and grew the company, I received more satisfaction and reward in my life. And then ultimately you kind of see the company also becoming more successful. So the fruits of the labor kind of full circle there.
That's great.
So for you, you had those three things, one of them being seeking wisdom. In your experience, was it this long path towards like gaining little nuggets here and there? Or was there, again, another defining moment of almost like a truth bomb dropped on you where all of a sudden it kind of became clear, right? Like
Right.
For me, you mentioned being a Christian. Like for me, all that stuff happened very quickly, right?
Right.
Like the Lord revealed himself to me, and that was my life truth bomb, right? It's going to obviously change who I am, whose I am. My entire identity is now no longer myself, right? Like I'm the Lord's. So for me, it was kind of a moment.
Sure.
Just complete 180. But for you, seeking those things and learning in those three different ways, was it like growth over time? Was it a specific moment?
Right.
How'd that work for you?
Well, I wasn't just knocked down by, this streak or this stroke of like wisdom or insight necessarily. There have been those aha moments. Like, that's the great thing about personal growth. And that's part of my passion now, is to pay that forward. But no, nothing very specific. It's been an accumulation of so many things, so many insights. So I read a lot. So if I can just take one thing, one gold nugget, so to speak, out of each book or each person or each mentor, then it's an accumulation. It's a cumulative effect over time. I've got a lot of mentors and all, and there were a few specific people, a couple of things resonated with me, kind of, like what we talked about earlier, for things to change, like you have to change. You can't just sit down and expect anyone else to do it for you. There were moments where I still overcoming limiting beliefs and all of those challenges, but it was kind of overcoming those and learning like, hey, like I can have that too. I just have to figure out how, and I either have to learn how or, I need to figure out what my plan is. So, why aren't most people rich?
Because they're poor. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well, that's true. It's because they never decided to be, right?
Yeah.
And so, how could you possibly, be something that you never decide to be, right? So I just it became really clear, like what I wanted. Again, the who, the what, the how, the why. I had to get really clear about all those things, in my life.
Where do you encourage people to start with that? I'm sure you heard Simon Sinek start with why.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he says to start. Is that what you agree to? Should people start with, why do I want this? Like, why do I want to be rich? Why do I want this? Why do I want better relationships? Or do you recommend starting with a different one of those?
Well, I don't want to steal Simon's.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. Like years ago, I just came up with the who, what, how, why, because that really clarified for me, like the four most important parts. If you don't know who you want to be or what you want to do and have, like your reasons aren't going to be as clear, right? Mm-hmm. Your whys. Mm-hmm. So you have to have the who and the what. And then you got to figure out the how. Like you can have this great list of all the things that you want to do and be, but if you don't figure out the roadmap, it's just a wish.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to put the work in too and figuring out how you're going to get there. But for me, the whys are the most important because that's your fuel. Like, that's what's going to drive you. That's what gets me up early and keeps me up late. Like for me, my whys, like I just wanted to become a respected leader, for my community and my team. And I wanted a successful business. And I wanted to be an outstanding father for my daughters and, right across the board. Just that was for me, like my motivation. And when I got clear about those, and then I was able to figure out, like, okay, how do I do that? Like, how do you become an outstanding father? Or how do you become an outstanding leader, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't just happen. It's not an accident. Like, you got to put the time in. You got to figure that stuff out. So a lot of it is either mentoring or it's delving into those books. And you're sacrificing, right? You're giving up something for something else. So I've invested thousands of hours in personal self-development.
Yeah. And I think that's beautiful because with anything, it's the disciplines, right? You got disciplines in terms of business, you got disciplines to be a father, you got spiritual disciplines, and all those are placed in effect because, like you had mentioned a little bit earlier, we have a default mode, right? We're going to be inclined to do our default. My default is to maybe be a little bit more laid back and lazy than Austin's. His default is to drive. Right. But each one comes with like a negative side, right? Like sometimes your greatest hindrance is also equally your greatest gift. I can be chill, but then that comes with I need to practice this discipline or routine or whatever, and usually it sucks and it's hard. And if it is kind of sucky and hard, that's probably the discipline I should be doing. If we're going to do all the disciplines and diligent workings in life and just choose the easy ones, it's because those come naturally.
Right.
And so I think it's beautiful, like what you're saying in terms of like we have to be intentional and take the step. Right now, for an analogy, my wife and I have two wonderful boys. One of them's 3 months. One of them's about 3.
Congrats.
Well, our life is kind of right now. People are like, well, how's that going? It is beautiful, more amazing than anything.
Sure.
But we are a little bit on parallel paths. She's more she's taking care of Iverson a little bit more, and I'm with Addie. Well, if we're not intentional, we're just living life parallel to one another. It's going to take intentionality for us to work to continue to pursue each other in love and build and foster that marriage. It's the same with business or anything else.
Sure.
And it's, I guess my whole bunny trail would be, it's doing and being intentional about practicing these disciplines so that what it's doing is it's forcing myself to resist the default. When a moment or anxiousness pops up, I'm going to go to default. And I'm forcing myself to almost redo what becomes natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then out of all that long-windedness, do you have some of those things? Like what were some of the most influential like disciplines or practices or like actual application in some areas of your life that helped you to break free from those other tendencies?
Right. Yeah, you're referring to habits. Like we're all creature of habits.
I just wanted to sound smarter, so I said it that way.
For sure. Right. Well, we are. We're very much creatures of habits, and I've heard it's really hard to change, right? We're comfortable in those habits. It's the known. You got to step outside of the unknown, I guess. For there to be change, you can't. It's insanity, or it's one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? So, for me, if I'm answering this correctly, I just became really passionate about personal growth for all the reasons I mentioned. I got clear about those 6 foundations in my life. One really big thing that made a difference for me, and like what you were saying, you give up something to gain something else, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works. So I developed the habit of getting up, starting from 6 a.m. early for self-development, for strategic planning, for reflection, for all those things, reading, whatever. 6 a.m. and I worked my way backwards until I probably did like 45 or 30-day increments till I got to 4 a.m., right? I actually still get up at 4 a.m. a lot. I developed that habit, and that habit isn't for everyone, and you have to sacrifice something, so it's either staying up too late or a lot of wasted time, right? So that was one of the habits that really changed my life, because once that became a habit for me, like that became my identity. Then it was ingrained. I didn't really have to make a choice anymore because it was now who I was. And so that I do attest that to a lot of my quote unquote success or my personal growth. But that habit specifically, working out, as far as like running, life's full of challenges, right? We can call it stress if we want to. You have to figure out like what works for you from a physical standpoint, because our careers and our family lives and whatever are taxing. And so I think that out of all things, like your physical, mental, and spiritual health, probably where you should start, because everything else can be built off of that. You can't be as successful in your business if you don't have your health, and can't be of very much value to your family, if you're not there or you're not healthy. So developing that habit of health was a huge one for me as well.
I think elaborating off of that, you said 2 things. So identifying in what you do, and also you probably didn't identify in that when you took the first step. So getting up early, you didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. and then you get up every day at 4 a.m. for the rest of your life. But you went from, okay, I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. to now I'm someone who gets up. I'm an early bird, right? And not just I'm going to set my alarm for 4 a.m. I'm an early bird. This is what I do.
Sure.
Or with reading books, like it's not I'm going to read this book. I'm a reader. This is what I do. I go to the gym. No, I'm someone who takes care of my health. Like I take care of my health. So I think that comes out of repetition and out of initially having the discipline to do that thing. I think taking care of your health is like a huge part. And that's like so foundational because we live with that every day.
Right.
Excuse me. And like our health is us, it's who we are.
For sure.
So if we get that in order, you almost tell yourself that I can do that. Like you're doing what you tell yourself you can do. And then once you do that, it motivates you to do what other things. Shane talked about in 2 sermons ago, like you don't feel like reading the Bible in the morning. So what? Still read it.
Do it anyway.
Like still read it and do it every single day. And then after 90 days, you're probably going to feel like reading the Bible because you're a Bible reader. You're not just reading the Bible, you're a Bible reader.
Right.
So
it starts to become routine.
It starts to become a routine, and Atomic Habits talks a lot about that in the book,
sure.
and habit stacking, and like what you did of reverse engineering, of slowly working to 4 and not just because I can go set my alarm for 4 this week, and I can get up every day this week at 4, but 3 weeks from now I'm not going to be getting up at 4. So
you can always start by having kids, and you will be up by 4 regardless of
life happens.
Yeah,
I get that. But I think first off, right, it has to be your identity.
Yeah.
And you have to have a strong reason. If you're just getting up at 4 a.m. and there's no real motivation behind it or no real purpose, if your vision isn't clear enough, it's not going to get you out of bed. You're going to fall off the wagon or whatever.
Yep.
So I think that having that identity is huge. So early in my life, I talked about the who, what, how, and why. Like it's having that identity of a fit, healthy person. It's having that identity of a successful business person or leader. Having the identity of being an outstanding father, spiritual, whatever that is, you develop that identity, right? How can you expect to be a healthy person, if you don't see yourself as one? So going back to what you said, developing the identity and then the habit and then having your strong purpose to back it up.
Yeah, I think a lot more people need to hear that. Than there's so much. I mean, you turn on any news channel and it's all emotion and it's all how does it make you feel, and you do what you feel is right versus just doing what's right.
All right.
It may not feel good to do what's right. It likely is not going to feel right.
But the reward, right.
Yeah.
If you can't see the reward, if you can't see the vision, the long-term reward, then that's, I guess, where most people do fail because they don't have a long-time perspective.
Yeah. How does it make me feel right now?
Yeah. So for me, I had to realize, this isn't going to happen overnight. Like Earl Nightingale says, don't worry about how long it's going to take. The time's going to pass anyway, right? It could take a while, and it took me a long time, and it's still taking me a long time. Like, I'm not there, but you have to just commit to that process and know that you will reach your goal if you just persist and don't quit. I have to have that mentality anyway.
Yeah.
And maybe I missed it, but what is your overarching why that got you to buy in and do it and push through that?
Sure. Well, remember, I got really clear about the 6 foundations in my life.
Yeah.
So when I did that, they all have their own wealth. I want to make sure that I stay balanced. One of the top, without a doubt, is my daughters. Number one, for sure. I want to do it for my daughters. I want to do it because I want them to have, a great father, and I want to be a great role model for them, and I want to, be able to provide great experiences for them, and I want to be able to, pass down my tools, not just the trophies, right? So that's one of the very, probably top driving forces for sure. But then, my family motivates me and my team. Being able to provide or build a great company for my team is really important. And the community. I want to be able to provide a great service and a great company for them. And so a lot of these driving forces and factors are kind of outside of me, right?
Yep. Which is what I was going to just say. I was going to say, I think because we talk a lot about the why, I think maybe that's something that gets glossed over. Is it just having a why? This might just be my opinion. I think just having a why won't get you there. It has to be a good why. I had a why and I failed. Your why was probably bad, and I'm not, right? No rule is perfect.
Right.
Some people can have a bad why and they find success. Fine.
For sure.
But the majority of the time, you got to ask yourself, is it a good why? And all your whys are external. And it's when we become un-me focused and our externals are outwardly, that's now servant leadership.
For sure.
And all of a sudden, there's a depth and a realness to our why. It's a good why. If it's just, because I feel like, it still involves you. I want to do this for my but it's for my family. And I think when that motivating why is really deep, really rich, and a good why, almost always external, outside of ourselves and for somebody else's betterment, man, then I think there's so much depth. It's that's a great oil. It's a great oil rig. There's a lot of fuel to be made there. Yeah.
So a lot of fuel
there. It's a deep well.
For sure, I agree.
Let's talk more about Phillips. So we kind of paused the story, came back to Wisconsin. So when you purchased the company, right, from your uncle?
My dad and uncle.
Your dad and uncle?
My parents and uncle.
Okay. And when you purchased it, it was just chain link fencing company, correct? And now you go to your showroom in Alaska, and I mean, like you talked about all these outdoor experiences that you guys are making now. Right. So tell us more about how you've cultivated, you've taken that 5-star mentality that you learned in the valet services and brought that to Phillips Outdoor Services?
Sure. Yeah, well, there's a ton of focus on, I would say, leadership, culture, customer service, continuous improvement, and attention to detail. I think that a lot of people know those things are important, right? I don't think it's so much a lack of knowledge that separates great companies from mediocre companies. I think it's more of a execution, a lack of execution. We all know a lot of things that we should be doing, and we just don't do them.
Yep.
So I think that stands true, like in business. Being really clear about your who, what, how, and why also in your business is important. I sometimes joke, like the 3 most important keys to business success is leadership, and leadership, right? We live or we die by our leadership. Leadership is a choice, not a position. Leadership needs to be intentional, not passive. And leadership isn't just about getting the best out of others, it's about getting the best out of ourselves. And, I think with leadership, there's often just as many things that we should stop doing as we should start doing. But when you're intentional about leadership, you can see big rewards through customer service, company culture, employee retention, as well as like attracting new talent into your company. And like it or not, we all have a leadership brand, right? The question is, is it a good one? How do you know if you're a strong leader? Is it because you say so? And it doesn't work that way, right? That's determined by your team, your customers, and ultimately your business success or failure. So I think those who lead inspire us. And we follow those who lead not necessarily because we have to, but because we want to.
So tell us about kind of that journey. So when people, how do you execute on those? Like people say culture is, how do you define culture? People see culture as a feeling. How does it feel in the office? How do people interact? But like culture is a thing that needs to be tracked, right? And it's a thing that needs to be intentional about the culture that you had. Tell us more about the culture of Phillips and how you are intentional about developing that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, company culture isn't flip-flop Fridays and free popcorn, right?
I'd argue it could be part of company culture.
I know. Those can be fun, but it's really about truly caring about your people and enriching their lives so that they can enrich each other's lives. Like, I love my team, and I'm investing in them not just as assets in the company, but as human beings, with their own hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Like you said, leadership needs to be, company culture, like leadership, needs to be intentional, not passive, right? You can't just say you want a good company culture, hang your culture statement on the wall, write it in your handbook, stick it in the drawer, and hope that all works out. Because it doesn't work that way. You need everyone to understand the importance of a great culture before they even join your company. We put, I would say, over 50% of our focus, for sure, on culture and character. Will they not only fit into the culture? That's important. But more importantly, will they add value? Will they make our culture stronger? Because if you keep bringing on people that can actually elevate you, right, there's a lot more power in that. And I would say that, like, the first time that you talk about culture and expectations and accountability, had better not be on the job. It had better be in the interview process multiple times, and then multiple times after that. it's not just about holding them accountable either. It's about holding ourselves accountable, because there's promises that I make to them. And it's not just about qualifying them per se. It's about them qualifying or disqualifying themselves if they don't feel like they align with the company. So there's a lot of focus on that. And it all starts with you, the leader, but you can't do it alone. It's not scalable or sustainable. Like, you need everybody in the company to understand the value of a strong culture, but also to help build and manage that. You have to truly genuinely care about building that community of trust and love and growth, and you can't fake that. Something really, it's powerful when you can get everybody moving in the same direction, kind of with the same vision, same goals, and same passions.
Do you find that harder in your industry to cultivate that? I mean, in general, the blue-collar landscaping industry doesn't focus on culture. They just hire guys that can mow lawn and can do the work, and it's kind of a boys club, blue-collar. You know what I mean? Like, it's very different than the culture that you are building and have. So is that kind of a shock to some people that come and interview with you guys? Do you guys embrace that, or do you see people that kind of shy away, like, I don't want to do that?
Yeah. Well, again, like you said, or I said, it's about qualifying or disqualifying. So we're just really transparent. We want to make sure that we're very thorough in our interviewing process and our vetting process. Bad apple rots the barrel, so we can't allow that to happen in our company at all. But we're also promoted as a place where you come to become your best self. I'm all about helping others become their best selves, so it's kind of come in and be a part of a great company, a great culture, somewhere that you can come in and become your best self, so to speak. And I don't know, it's just, it's hard. It's hard sometimes to balance. Like, they have the skills,
yeah,
but they don't have the culture, and everyone has a hard time with hiring right now, right? So we'll make that, that call pretty easily. Like, nope, not going to work. Going to ruin or could affect the culture. So we'll pass. We will train on the other things if we have to, but you can't train, right, on a lot of those character and culture things.
Do you think that ultimately helps or hurts with recruiting new people? Like, are people more drawn to that reaching out to you, looking to be a part of what you're doing?
I think it helps our company. I mean, those are the type of people we want to attract.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, we're very thorough about what that looks like. Our culture, our company, our expectations, our standards, and all of that. So most people want to join this because it is adding a lot of value to their life, and they've had it the other way. Like, if I'm being frank, right, a lot of companies don't have a great culture, or they don't even have a very well run or operated company, poor leadership, whatever it is. The number one reason people leave jobs is bad leadership. So I just think that it can be very refreshing for a lot of people to be able to come in and experience that, and they want to be a part of it for the most part.
How do you, practically speaking, empower your leaders to instill that same culture and values into the people that they lead and manage? Because you're obviously at the point where everybody doesn't report to you. Right. Probably only a handful of people do. So how do you instill those values into your cultures, into your leaders, and how do you ensure that they're actually executing on that?
Right. Well, we talked about that earlier. Like, it has to start with you, and it did. I created the mission and the principles and the culture statement, vision, and the direction of the company. But then I had to find the right people, and you just start building, right? So like a chess game, you bring in the right people, and they align. Like, they just have to align. They have to want that too, for either for personal reasons or professional reasons. They want that in their life as well. So for me building up my leadership team is just a lot about leading by example, of course, but just being very clear about it from the beginning, like this is what we want our company to be, and this is why. Something that I did for my business when I was creating the vision and business plan was I did apply the who, what, how, and why to my business. So we got very, very, very clear about all of that, identified my principles and the mission statement and all those things. So they knew what they were signing up for, and they knew what the expectations were, and that's what they wanted. And so there's a lot of obviously continuous improvement in all areas of our company, but as far as the leadership goes, like we'll continue to work on those points of emphasis about culture and how can we become even a stronger company and create a stronger culture for our team and for our people. But
that's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of the shift I think we're seeing overall just in businesses. I think people are finally starting to focus on we for years looked at skill and talent. We want really talented people, don't care so much about the whatever because we want the work done.
Right.
Well, that's why a lot of leadership right now, not just in community, but like worldwide, we have high talent, low character people.
Exactly.
And now we're starting to see that flip. Yeah. We want high character. We don't want low talent.
You can have
whatever, but you can teach talent seemingly easier than character.
Right.
So
yeah, there has to be some level of capability, like you can do the job or you can learn these things, right?
Yeah.
It'd be silly to think otherwise, but hard to change character, hard to mess with the culture side of things.
Mm-hmm. Tell us more about your book.
Sure.
What, give us a high level overview, our listeners, if they're interested in checking that out, what they can expect from that.
Yeah. Well, the book's not published yet, so still just wrapping that up. Just got the introduction, the foreword from Brian Tracy back, so I'm very honored to have him doing that for me. He became one of my top mentors many years ago, and now a friend of I get to call him a friend. So honored to do that. As far as the book goes, the book, a lot of what we've talked about, a lot of those things are in there. It's an accumulation of the last 18 years of my life specifically, where I was very intentional about personal growth and figuring these things out. A lot of trial and error, coming up with tools or applying tools. So my book is a kind of an accumulation of 36 different tools almost that I've embraced or created or adopted into my life. So the book is separated into the who, what, how, and why. And it emphasizes the 6 foundation goals. So the professional, personal, financial, the relationships, well-being, and lifestyle, so that you are really thinking balanced in all of those areas, because it's easy to get out of balance, right? Sometimes we have to get a little out of balance to achieve one goal, but don't let that go on for too long. Mm-hmm. So I'm just, I'm excited to be able to put a lot of my experience and my wisdom into book form, because my coaching program is really structured around that as well. Mm. And so I'm just happy to be able to share and articulate some of those things, and I'm seeing a lot of positive results from the people that I'm working with.
Awesome.
How long have you been working on that? How long has this process been?
Right. Well,
18 years?
Right. You would have to
How many books a year do you read, Ben?
Well, this last year, because I was finishing the book, I wasn't reading as many, but the year before, I read 100, and then I think the year before that...
whole life. That's not so interesting.
Right.
Well, 10x my life.
It was... I became very intentional about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't an accident either. So I dedicated my mornings and nights, every morning, every night, to reading, something, hopefully at least an hour, sometimes more. I would sacrifice certain things during the weekend to go, and I would work all weekend on strategic planning or critical thinking or reading.
Wait, does that count? Because I've read like Tractors on the Go to Atticus like so many times. Like if you count his kid books, I might be up to 30 books.
Right.
So
That's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, back to your book. So, obviously an avid reader. So taking all of that and everything that you've learned, and I had the honor of, or have the honor of going through your book and helping with the drafting. I'm about halfway through it.
Okay.
It is definitely a culmination of everything, right? It is truly a roadmap. It is truly, applies to every facet of your life. So, and at the end, you even have a giant list of books that you recommend. So definitely something we'll recommend people take a look at.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Just happy to be able to, pay it forward, so to speak.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, if there's one thing you want to end this episode with, Ben, and you want our listeners to get this one thing from the episode, they were zoned out, they're zoned back in.
They've been locked in this whole time.
Right.
What do you want them to hear?
Well, I don't think I have just one.
Okay.
I would just
Top
say,
20.
Okay, I'll keep it below 20. First, I would just say, it's easy to make a buck. It's a lot harder to make a difference. Success isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become. Okay? You are where you are and what you are because of who you are and the choices that you've made up to this point in your life. And wherever you are today or ever will be in the future will be determined by the choices that you make and the actions that you take. You may not be able to change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight, right? I think a lot of people think they lack motivation, but what they really lack is clarity. You can be, do, and have just about anything if you'll get really clear about the who, what, how, and why in your life or your business. Something magical happens when you start living by design rather than default. And last, I would just say develop the habit of perseverance. Can you ever really fail if you never quit? I think it was Winston Churchill who said, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. So keep on keeping on.
Wise words of, what's that movie?
Keep on keeping on?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably a Will Ferrell
Long hair.
movie.
Oh, gosh. Joe Dirt. Joe Dirt. Keep on keeping on.
That's not where I got it from.
I don't think
Maybe he didn't get it.
he borrowed it.
Yeah, he probably borrowed
I
it.
did not steal that.
Well, thanks for being here today, Ben. Thankful to hear all the wisdom that you had to share, and I'm sure our audience is as well. So thank you for taking the time on your day to be here.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of the Pay It Forward podcast. If you want to find out more about the show or how you can sponsor the show to keep the conversations going, please visit our website, payitforwardpodcast.com. Again, thank you so much for your support, and we hope that you find a way this week to pay it forward.